Hey everyone, I'm Nathan, 27 years old, and my own family threw me out of the home I was funding. Before I dive into how I discovered a massive 7-month deception and a hidden debt that could have left them all on the streets, do me a favor. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're reading this from. I love seeing how far these stories reach. Let's get started. It all unraveled on a Sunday, one of those humid late August Sundays in the Midwest where the air feels thick and everyone's a bit on edge. I was dragging myself home after a grueling 12-hour shift at the restaurant where I'm a manager. My feet throbbed, my back was a bundle of knots, and all I craved was a hot shower and a moment of peace. But first, I had to grab groceries. If I didn't, the fridge would stay bare and my family would act like food magically appeared every week. I pushed through the front door, its familiar creak announcing my arrival like an unpaid doorman. The house smelled of musty air and something faintly like burnt coffee. In the living room, the TV blared a brain-numbing quiz show. My younger brother, Jake, was sprawled across the couch, his face glowing from the eerie light of his phone. He didn't glance up, never did. His universe was that tiny screen, and we were just background noise. My dad, Tom, leaned against the kitchen counter, staring into his coffee mug like it held life's answers. He was a pro at staying silent, fading into the scenery when tension brewed. Then there was my mom, Linda. She stood by the stove, arms crossed so tightly it seemed she was holding herself together. Her eyes, when they met mine, were cold as steel. I hefted the heavy grocery bags, their handles biting into my palms. "Hey," I said, exhaustion lacing my voice. "Traffic was awful." She didn't respond. Her stare was icy as I walked past and set the bags on the counter. The thud they made echoed in the strained silence. I began unpacking, a mechanical routine I could do blindfolded. Milk, eggs, bread, the fancy hazelnut creamer Dad loved, the organic non-GMO cereal Jake swore was the only kind he'd eat. It was my weekly ritual, my money, my time, my energy. "Is that all you've got to say?" Mom snapped, her voice like a whip. It cut through the TV's cheerful racket. I froze, a jug of orange juice in hand, and turned to face her, confused. "What do you mean?" "Don't act clueless, Nathan," she said, stepping forward with venom in her voice. "You stroll in here, reeking of fryer grease, tossing down groceries like you're some hero, doing us a favor. You think that makes up for it?" "Makes up for what?" My mind raced, searching for what I'd done wrong. Had I missed a bill? A birthday? No, I paid everything. That was the deal. "Your attitude," she spat, her voice rising to a pitch that set my teeth on edge. "The way you act superior looking down on us. You think you're above us with your little promotion and your secret savings." I stared, stunned. This came out of nowhere. Jake finally looked up from his phone, a sly grin spreading across his face, relishing the drama. Dad kept his eyes glued to the counter. His silence a quiet endorsement something inside me, worn thin by years of disregard and entitlement, broke. Not loudly, but with a cold, quiet snap. The anger I should have felt gave way to a hollow calm. I met her gaze, my voice steady and low. "What did I do wrong?" I asked, each word measured. "Besides pay for this house?" The question hung like a guillotine. Mom's face paled, Jake's grin vanished, and Dad flinched for the first time that night. "Get out," Mom shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at the door. "You're ungrateful, a curse on this family. Leave and don't come back." I didn't argue. There was no point. I walked to the small table by the door where we kept keys and mail. I slid the house key off my ring, its metal cool in my hand, and placed it on the wood. Then I pulled out my wallet, removed the backup credit card tied to my account. The one they used for emergencies, like Jake's new headphones or Mom's spa days, and set it beside the key. I turned, gave them one final look, the furious mother, the mute father, the sneering brother, and walked out. The door's soft click behind me wasn't an end. It was the start of something new. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. I drove aimlessly for hours, the sunset painting the sky in fiery reds and purples, but the world outside was a dull blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my jaw tight enough to ache. Eventually, I spotted a flickering neon sign off the highway. Motel. Vacancy. It would do. The room reeked of old smoke, cheap cleaner, and despair. The carpet was a patchwork of stains, the lone lamp casting a sickly yellow glow. Lying on the lumpy bed, the scratchy blanket rough against my skin, I wasn't just exhausted. I was empty. Memories flooded in, a relentless replay of the past decade. It wasn't one big betrayal. It was a slow bleed, 1,000 tiny wounds. It began when I was 16. Dad lost his job at the warehouse after 20 years. His pride never recovered. Mom's part-time gig as a clerk couldn't cover the mortgage and bills for 4, so I stepped up. I got a job washing dishes at a local diner, Tony's Place. Tony, the owner, was a gruff man who respected hard work. I'd go from school to the diner, standing in a haze of steam, hands raw from scrubbing pans until midnight. Then I'd study for hours, driven by a burning need for a scholarship. My only escape, my first paycheck, $220, felt like a windfall. I dreamed of buying a used PlayStation I'd seen at a pawn shop. But when I got home, Mom was at the kitchen table, head in her hands, a pile of bills before her. A red overdue notice for the gas bill glared from the top. I looked at my check, then at her defeated posture. There was no real choice. That check and nearly everyone after went to the family. My PlayStation dream died that night. The pattern was cemented. My needs came last. My wants didn't exist. When Jake turned 16, he wanted a car. They couldn't afford it, but they got a loan, and my diner hours mysteriously increased to cover the payments. I was a high school junior, working nearly 40 hours a week, so Jake could cruise with his friends in a beat-up Toyota he treated like a sports car. No one called it my car, though my sweat paid for it. Jake even griped that I left the seat smelling like the diner when I borrowed it for errands. When I got a full scholarship to the state university, I thought it'd be a family victory. I rushed home, waving the letter. Mom barely glanced at it. "That's nice," she said. "Since you don't need to save for college, you can help with the bills more." Dad just nodded from behind his magazine. They didn't attend my high school graduation, claiming work conflicts. I saw them at the mall the next day. Shopping college was my escape, but not entirely. I lived at home to save money, which just funneled back to them. I'd be studying for a biology exam when Mom would knock. "Nathan, the furnace is acting up. The guy says $900. My raise from moving up to cook at the diner went to the repairman instead of the laptop I needed for school. Meanwhile, Jake was in his room, blasting music and celebrating some gaming win. The unfairness was a bitter pill I swallowed daily. Jake tried community college twice, dropping out both times, racking up student loans he'd never repay. The first time it was too dull. The second, the early classes were torture. They used my property tax contributions for his tuition. I only learned this when a tax delinquency notice arrived. When I confronted them, Dad muttered about giving Jake room to grow. Mom accused me of envying Jake's free spirit. Tony saw it all. He never pushed, but he noticed my fatigue, my endless shifts. He urged me to switch my major to business. "You're sharp, kid," he said one night, patting my shoulder as I cleaned the counter. "You've got a knack for numbers and people. Don't let anyone chain you to this place." He promoted me to manager the day after I graduated. He was at my college graduation, cheering louder than anyone. A better father than my own Dot in that grim motel room, the stench of cigarettes choking me. I wasn't just angry, I was mourning. Mourning the kid who never got to be young, the student who missed out on college life, the son who was never truly a son. I was a resource, a paycheck, a machine with their last name. As I drifted into uneasy sleep, one thought echoed. They didn't kick out their son. They smashed their piggy bank because it wasn't coughing up cash fast enough. The first month of freedom was brutal. Supporting a family of 4, even a broken one, had wired me with bad habits. For them, it was reliance. For me, it was never keeping a dime. My life had been a cycle of earning and giving away. Now, keeping my money felt wrong, almost sinful. The motel was unsustainable. I found a room in a shared house across town. A cramped attic with a sloped ceiling I kept banging my head on, and a window overlooking a junk-filled yard. I shared a bathroom with 2 strangers who left soggy towels everywhere and never bought toilet paper. It was a downgrade from my old bedroom, but it was mine, $500 a month, utilities included. The most I could afford after years of my income vanishing into my family's endless demands. Loneliness was a constant weight, a shadow in my chest. It rode with me in my rusty 2010 Honda on my commute. It slept beside me in my narrow bed. I was so used to my family's noise, Mom's complaints, Jake's music, the TV's drone, that the silence of my room was suffocating. It left too much room for doubt. I buried myself in work, taking every shift Tony offered. The money piled up, but I was too scared to spend it, haunted by the specter of some future crisis. A car breakdown, a hospital bill. So I lived like a broke student, eating instant noodles and jelly sandwiches. I was a 27-year-old manager, yet poverty clung to me out of fear. 2 weeks in, I hit a low point. Driving home after a late shift past 1 a.m., rain pounding the windshield, my car sputtered and died mid-road. I coasted to the side, the engine clicking uselessly. My heart sank. I had $600 to my name, rent due soon, and now a tow and repairs. I was doomed. The urge to call my family was overwhelming. I could hear Mom's smug, "I knew you'd fail," before she'd lend me my own money. Instead, I called my friend Emily. "You did it," she said, her voice a mix of awe and pride when I told her I'd left. "You actually walked away." "I'm stuck on the road with a dead car," I muttered, voice breaking. "I've got no money, living in a dump, I'm a failure." "No," she snapped, fierce. "You're free, Nathan. This is the rough part, the withdrawal. Your legs are shaky because you're standing alone for the first time. Don't go back. Call a tow, use your card, you'll figure it out for you." Her words were a lifeline. I wasn't that helpless kid anymore. I was a manager, I fixed problems. I called a tow, swiped my card, and prayed it wouldn't bounce. The next day, the mechanic's verdict: a busted alternator, $400 to fix. It nearly wiped me out, but I paid it. Writing that check felt like a victory. That night, I opened my laptop and made a spreadsheet. I listed my income, then my expenses: rent, insurance, gas, phone, the repair. For the first time, I budgeted for one person, me. Then I did something painful. I pulled up my bank statements and tallied what I'd given my family over the past 2 years since becoming manager. Mortgage payments, utilities, their car repairs, Jake's emergency cash for gadgets and concerts, the $10,000 credit card debt I'd paid off to stop the relentless collection calls. The total made me sick, more than my entire scholarship-funded education, enough for a down payment on a house. My house, that number was a revelation. This wasn't family duty, it was exploitation. I shut the laptop, my anger hardening into resolve. I'd been their safety net, their pension, their fund. No more. The silence from my family continued. No texts, no calls, not even Jake begging for cash. It stung, but the new me, the one building a life in a cramped attic, understood. Their silence wasn't respect. It was the quiet of someone who'd misplaced a tool they hadn't needed yet. It took 3 months, 97 days, for them to break the silence. In that time, my life began to take shape, like a sketch slowly coming into focus. After 2 months in that miserable shared house, I saved enough for a deposit and first month's rent on a tiny studio apartment. It was in a rough neighborhood, with walls so thin I could hear my neighbor cough, but it was mine. My name, and only my name, was on the lease. I bought a small cactus from a hardware store and named it Tony after my boss. It was a small, silly thing, but seeing it on my windowsill gave me a sense of ownership I'd never felt. I was responsible for something alive, not just my family's delusions. I built a routine. I'd wake early, jog through quiet streets, feeling the burn of life in my lungs. I'd stop at a little coffee shop, Brew Haven, on my way back. There, a barista named Mia, with warm eyes and a genuine smile, became a bright spot. At first, it was just polite exchanges. Then she started remembering my order: black coffee, 1 sugar. "The usual?" she'd ask, grinning. Our small talk grew into chats about books, local events, or her art studies. She was kind, sharp, and saw me as a person. Not a son, brother, or bank. I was happy. Hopeful. My paychecks stayed in my account, growing to $1,000, then $3,000, then $6,000. A safety net I was weaving myself. I researched online courses for a hospitality certification, dreaming of a future that was mine. The constant anxiety that had shadowed me was fading. I was healing. Then, on a Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed. I was at my tiny kitchen table, sipping coffee from a mug Mia helped me choose, planning my week. The screen showed Dad's name. My heart pounded, my mind racing. Was someone hurt? Sick? Could this be an apology? A foolish part of me hoped. I opened the text, 4 words, no greeting. Where's the mortgage money? The entitlement, the utter obliviousness was staggering. It was as if the past 3 months, my exit, the key, the card, hadn't happened. I was just a slacker who'd forgotten a task. The peace I'd built shattered, replaced by a familiar burn of anger. I wanted to scream, to smash my phone, to fire back a furious rant. Instead, I set the phone down, walked to the window, and watched the world outside, cars passing, a kid biking. I breathed deeply. I thought of the attic, the dead car, the cheap noodles, my growing savings, Mia's smile. I wasn't the same person who'd left that house. I picked up the phone and typed the truth, simple and sharp. I thought I wasn't wanted anymore. I hit send. Then my phone erupted. Mom's texts came like a storm. "What's wrong with you?" The bank called. "Nathan, the bank. How could you do this after all we've done? We gave you a home, you want us homeless." "You're heartless," Jake chimed in, smug as ever. "So this is your big payback? Letting the house get taken to prove a point? Lame, even for you. Dad's a mess," Mom's crying. Hope your proud dad sent one more. You know we can't pay, son. Please, just this time sitting in my thrift store chair in my own apartment, I felt a strange calm. Their texts never asked about me, not how I was, not if I was okay. It was all about the money. Always had been. Their panic was too intense for just 3 missed payments. Something was deeply wrong, and for the first time, I wasn't going to fix it. I was going to uncover it the next morning. I called in sick to work, telling Tony it was a family crisis. It wasn't a lie. My family was a decades-long disaster. I paced my apartment, their desperate texts replaying in my mind. Their fear wasn't normal. It was the panic of people whose secrets were about to explode. I considered calling the bank, but stopped. That was their game, pulling me back into the fixer role. I needed answers on my terms. I opened my laptop, heart racing, and logged into the family's joint bank account, the one I'd sent mortgage money to monthly. I half expected my access to be gone, but they hadn't bothered to cut me off. To them, I was irrelevant without my money. I pulled up the transaction history for the past year, hands shaking, and clicked search. The screen loaded and my breath caught. I'd sent $1,800 every month, a steady column of my sacrifice. But the mortgage payments? Spotty, then non-existent. The last full payment was 7 months ago, 4 months before I left. Mom's outburst that night likely stemmed from a bank warning, her anger a deflection. My blood chilled. Where had my money gone? Thousands of dollars vanished. I scrolled through the debits, piecing together the truth.